Have you ever been in a situation where you felt left out? It doesn't feel very good, does it? Like you're sitting there and you're sitting with a bunch of friends, maybe it's a birthday party, and everybody gets something, but you're sitting there and you're the only one not to get something. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's a slice of cake, and you feel left out. Or maybe you've been on the other end where you show up and you brought gifts for everybody, but you didn't know that so-and-so was going to be there, and you don't have a gift for them, and you just feel terrible. In either situation, it's not a good feeling to be in. How does that relate with what we're talking about? Well, you'll see in a minute. Today we're going to be talking about something called the distributive property. This is an important property that you're going to use a lot in this course. And I'm going to break this video up, in this lesson, I should say, up into two parts, because I felt like this lesson in particular, there were two parts to it. So I'll just focus on this first part in this video, and in the second video we'll focus on the second part, dealing with the distributive property. So begin with, here's another analogy for the distributive property. Maybe you've been told that it's your chore today to serve your family sitting around the table. And so you're going to set up dinner plates for everybody. Well, you want to make sure that everybody gets a plate. You don't want to leave anybody out. Just like showing up at a party, making sure that you have a gift for everybody. If you're going to bring a gift for one person or two people, you want to make sure you have enough for everybody. So we're going to make sure that we distribute, everybody gets a plate. Pretty simple, right? Yes, of course, everybody's going to get a plate. How does that relate to math? Well, let's say if instead of family members, we replace those family members with numbers. Yes, I know there might be times where you want to do that in your own home with your siblings, but we're not going to replace our siblings with numbers. But let's just say, for this example, instead of people, we're dealing now with numbers. And instead of those plates, let's say if we're using a number, like multiplying by 2. So now we are going to distribute and make sure that every single one of those numbers receives a times 2. Now we're not going to see things like this in math. We're going to have a bunch of numbers around a table and we're going to distribute plates of numbers. Instead, we're going to see problems like this. Now, we're going to distribute, when we have a bunch of things in parentheses and a number outside of the parentheses, that means we're going to distribute that number to everything inside of the parentheses. So we would take 2 times 5. We would take 2 times 6. We would take 2 times 3. 2 times 2, 2 times 4, and 2 times 1. This is just one way that we could simplify a problem like this. And now if we were to go ahead and multiply all those together, we would get 10 plus 12 plus 6 plus 4 plus 8 plus 2. So what I just did is I just multiplied those pairings. And then the last step would be to add these numbers together. Now, when we add numbers together, yes, in the past I've done things where we added just from left to right. But we can also, remember, with the associative property, we can group things together. Like, for example, I noticed that there's an 8 and 2 and a 6 and 4 that adds up to be 10. 10 each. So, and 10 plus 12 would be 22. So 22 plus the 6 and 4, which is 10, would be 32. And 32 plus the 8 and 2, which would be 10, would be 42. So it's another way that we can tackle this type of problem. So my answer here would be 42, and that's one way we could use the distributive property. Now going back to the beginning, you might say, well, could we just add those numbers in parentheses first, using the order of operations, and then multiply by 2? Yes, we could. But in algebra, we're not always going to be able to simplify things inside of parentheses, like this example. M plus 4. I can't add together M plus 4. We just leave it as it is. But outside of the parentheses, I have 2. That means that I could multiply 2 times M and 2 times 4. And if I simplify that, 2m would just stay 2m, and 2 times 4 would be 8. So this would simplify to be 2m plus 8. Now remember, these are not like terms, so do not add these together, because the 2 has an m attached to it, the 8 doesn't, so we can't combine these. Let's look at another example. Here we have 3 times 92. Now yes, we could multiply 3 times 92 using multiplication the traditional way, or we could apply this idea of the distributive property by taking that 92 and breaking it up into 90 and 2. It's tens and it's ones. And now we can distribute the 3 times 90 and the 3 times 2. And 3 times 90 would be 270, and 3 times 2 would be 6, giving us 276. That's just another way that the distributive property could be used. Now, I want you guys to try these examples. All right, now if you need to, you can look back at your notes. Remember, you should be taking notes on these, writing those examples down, so you have something to look back at. Because now when you go to try these on your own, you can look back at the similar problems and see how we did those. So if you did not take good notes, I would recommend going back, just copying those down into your notes before attempting these problems. If you're feeling ready to try these problems, why don't you go ahead and pause the video, and then hit play when you're ready to check to see if you have each of these correct. So go ahead and do that now. All right, let's see how you did. For this first one, you should have gotten 40 as your answer. Now again, I want you to use the distributive property. You might have taken 2 plus 5 plus 3 and gotten 10 and multiplied 4 times 10 and got 40. That's fine, but it's also good to see how the distributive property could be used here. So do you see how that worked? All right, let's look at the next one. So the next one, this is one where you have to use the distributive property. There's no other way around it. We're going to distribute the 5 through. So we would take 5 times y and 5 times 6 to get 5y plus 30. Did you get that one? I hope so. Let's try, or see how you did on this last one. So this last one, 3 times 73, again, using the distributive property. We could break that 73 up into 70 plus 3. And 3 times 70 would be 210, and 3 times 3 would be 9. Add those together, we get 219. So there you have it. That's, in a nutshell, that is the distributive property. So why don't you go ahead now and watch that next video to see what we're going to do next with the distributive property.